I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I used to think I had a pretty normal life. I was married to Lisa for 5 years, and we had what I believed was a solid relationship. Sure, like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but I always thought we could work through things. I mean, who doesn't have a few bumps in the road? But looking back, I can see the signs were there all along, and I was too blind to notice them. Lisa had recently started acting differently. At first, I shrugged it off as just the stresses of work or maybe a phase. She was a marketing manager at a big firm, and sometimes the demands of her job would get overwhelming. Late nights became more frequent, and she'd often come home exhausted, but I thought nothing of it. I'd cook dinner and try to be supportive, but honestly, I started feeling a distance growing between us. Then there were the little things, the unreturned texts, her sudden need for privacy with her phone, and the way she would always forget to mention her plans. I chalked it up to the pressures of life, but there was a sinking feeling in my gut that something was off. Friends would say she was different, but I brushed it off, thinking they were just being overly dramatic. One night, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise her with a nice dinner. I pulled into the driveway and noticed her car wasn't parked where it usually was. My heart sank momentarily, but I told myself she might have gone for a walk or stopped by the grocery store. I walked inside, and the moment I entered our home, I sensed something was wrong. The house was silent, not a single sound. Normally, I'd expect to hear the TV or music playing, but there was nothing. I headed to our bedroom, and my heart raced when I saw her phone lying on the bedside table. It was unlocked. Curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up and saw a series of messages from a guy named Mike. My breath hitched in my throat as I read words that twisted my gut into knots. They were flirty, intimate messages about meeting up and having some fun. My world shattered in that moment, and I felt like I was going to be sick. I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought about confronting her right then and there, but I decided to wait. I wanted to gather evidence to confirm that my worst fears were true. So, I started paying attention to her more closely, and honestly, it felt like I was living in a suspense thriller. I followed her one day when she said she was going to the office on a Saturday. Instead, I caught her at a cafe with Mike. I parked a few blocks away, watching her laugh and touch him, her eyes sparkling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. It was the most gut-wrenching thing I've ever witnessed. After that, I felt rage and heartbreak consume me, but I kept my cool. I knew I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it in a way that would leave no room for denial. I wanted her to admit what I already knew. The following week, I planned our confrontation. I made sure to have the timing just right. Lisa came home that evening, looking as if she had just come from a glamorous evening out. I could smell the perfume on her skin, a scent I wasn't familiar with. My heart was pounding, but I pushed through. "Hey, can we talk?" I asked, trying to sound calm, even though every word felt like it was caught in my throat. "Sure, what's up?" she replied, her eyes darting nervously. "What's up is I know about Mike," I said, watching her face drain of color. I pulled out my phone, showing her the messages and my photo evidence from the cafe. Her reaction was immediate. Instead of apologizing, she became defensive, insisting that I was overreacting and that it wasn't what it looked like. She spit out excuses like they were rehearsed lines, claiming they were just friends and that I was being paranoid. In that moment, I felt both anger and sorrow wash over me. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the complete denial of our shared reality, the complete fabrication of a life I thought we had built together. I took a moment to breathe, feeling the weight of her lies crashing down around me. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eye and deny the truth? As the confrontation continued, I realized I needed to be precise in my response. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she had done, to understand that there would be consequences for her actions. I made my decision that night, a decision that would change everything. I was done with the lies and the deception. I was ready to move forward, but I needed a plan, something that would not only allow me to heal but also ensure she understood the gravity of her betrayal. I would not let her think I would just move on quietly. I was going to make her see the precision of my actions as I moved in silence, preparing my revenge. The confrontation didn't go how I imagined it would. I thought, maybe naively, that she would break down and apologize, realizing how her actions had ruined everything we had built together. But instead, Lisa doubled down. She fumed about me invading her privacy, about how I had no right to betray her trust by going through her phone. It was bizarre to hear her rant about trust when she had betrayed mine. "Jake, you've completely misinterpreted things," she insisted, her voice rising in pitch. "Mike is just a friend. You're being ridiculous." Each word dripped with indignation, and it struck me as pathetic. I wanted to scream, to throw the evidence in her face and demand how she could look me in the eye and lie like that. Instead, I held my ground, keeping my voice steady. "You expect me to believe you. You think I'm just going to let this slide because you say it's not what it seems. I have photos, Lisa. I watched you with him. Don't insult my intelligence." For a moment the air grew heavy with silence. I could see her internal struggle as her eyes darted around, searching for a way out of the corner she had painted herself into. But she quickly regained composure, crossing her arms defiantly. "You've always been so controlling. You want to dictate who I can talk to, who I can be friends with. You're suffocating me." Her words stung, but I knew they were a deflection. "No one is forbidding you from having friends, Lisa. I'm saying you shouldn't be having sex with them." That was when I saw fear flicker across her face. She knew the gravity of her actions. I could tell she was calculating her next move, desperately trying to conjure a way to save her own skin. I didn't want to prolong the conversation any longer. I was ready to put my plan into action. I just needed to find out how to make her understand that she had crossed a line. After that night, I spent a few days in a haze of anger and confusion. I felt betrayed, yes, but more than that, I felt a fire igniting inside me. I knew I wouldn't let this go unpunished. I had never been the vengeful type, always one to believe in forgiveness and moving on, but Lisa's betrayal had awakened something darker in me. I started to think about how to get back at her. I wasn't going to lash out in a reckless manner. No, I needed to be methodical and precise. I had to make her feel the weight of her actions and see the consequences of her betrayal. I began to gather information. I called up our mutual friends and subtly probed them about Lisa. To my surprise, gossip had already spread about her behavior, and several friends expressed concern, unaware of the full story. Some had even noticed the change in her demeanor. "She doesn't seem like herself anymore," one friend remarked. "It's like she's hiding something." I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing I wasn't the only one who noticed her transformation. I dug deeper, learning more about Mike. He was a coworker, but there was something else. He had a reputation for being a womanizer, someone who thrived on chaos and drama. I couldn't believe she would choose someone like him over our relationship. The more I discovered, the more emboldened I felt. I decided to gather my evidence and plan my next move. I knew Lisa would eventually confront me again, wanting to work things out, but I needed to be prepared. I toyed with the idea of exposing her infidelity to her friends, family, and even her boss. It wasn't just about revenge. I wanted her to feel the repercussions of her choices. One night, I set up a meeting with a close friend of hers, Rachel. I had known Rachel for years, and I trusted her to handle the situation delicately. I laid out the evidence, showing her the messages, the pictures, and everything I had gathered. Rachel's eyes widened in disbelief. "I can't believe she would do this," she whispered, looking genuinely shocked. "Exactly," I said, my voice steady. "I need her to be held accountable. I don't want her to think she can just sweep this under the rug." Rachel agreed to help me, promising to talk to Lisa. I could tell she was hesitant, but I laid out my plan, emphasizing that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about making Lisa realize how her actions had consequences. I wanted Lisa to see how her betrayal affected not only me, but also everyone around her. As the days went by, I felt a strange mix of dread and excitement. I was standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to take a leap into a confrontation that I knew would change our lives forever. I could almost taste the anticipation. I was ready to unleash the storm, and Lisa would have to face the whirlwind of her own making. The day finally came when Rachel decided to confront Lisa. I was a bundle of nerves, pacing in our living room knowing that this was the moment I had prepared for. I could only imagine the conversation they were having, the words exchanged, and the shock on Lisa's face as Rachel laid everything out for her. I waited for what felt like an eternity, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, I heard the door swing open and Lisa stomped into the house, her expression a mix of anger and confusion. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing. "What did you say to Rachel?" I smirked, feeling a sense of power that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Oh, just a little chat about your extracurricular activities. You know, the ones you thought you could keep a secret." Her face flushed with rage. "You had no right. You're such a coward, Jake." But I wasn't going to let her get to me. I knew I had her on the defensive now. I had executed my first move in this game of revenge, and I was ready to reveal the full extent of my plan. The silence between us was thick with tension, and I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. She knew this was just the beginning of the consequences she would face. I was finally ready to make her realize that she would not escape unscathed. Lisa stood in the living room, her fists clenched at her sides, breathing heavily. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she tried to regain control of the situation. But I had turned the tables on her and it felt exhilarating. "Coward," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Is that what you think of me, after everything you've done? You're the one who decided to betray our marriage, Lisa. You're the one who chose to deceive me, and now you want to play the victim." She opened her mouth to retort, but then closed it, realizing that whatever excuse she had brewing wouldn't hold water anymore. The anger and defiance that had radiated from her began to fade, replaced by an uneasy vulnerability. "You don't understand," she muttered finally, her voice lower, almost pleading. "It's not like that. I didn't mean to hurt you." I scoffed. "You didn't mean to hurt me. You thought so little about me that you didn't even consider how your actions would affect our relationship. You thought you could handle this on your own, but here we are." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as Lisa's bravado crumbled, the confidence she had moments earlier replaced by a palpable fear. It was clear she hadn't expected me to fight back, to stand up for myself in this way. "Rachel told me everything," I stated, my voice steady. "She didn't hold back. I know about the late nights you've spent with Mike, the lies you've told about your whereabouts. Do you think I'm just going to ignore all of that?" Her face twisted in frustration. "You should have trusted me, Jake. I thought I could talk to you about my feelings instead of you snooping around." "Feelings?" I interrupted, my voice growing sharper. "What about my feelings? You've been using Mike as your emotional crutch while I've been here, trying to be a good husband." The room fell silent again as I watched the realization wash over her. The anger was replaced by a deep sadness, and for the first time, it felt like I was reaching her. I could see the guilt flickering in her eyes, a mixture of regret and shame that came too late. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, her voice cracking. I took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over us like a heavy shroud. "I want you to understand the damage you've done. I want you to acknowledge that what you did was wrong. This isn't just about infidelity, Lisa. It's about the trust that's been shattered." Her shoulders slumped as she finally seemed to grasp the full scope of the situation. "I never wanted it to come to this," she whispered. "I thought I could handle it without hurting you. I thought you'd never find out." "I didn't want to find out," I shot back. "But now that I know, we can't go back to how things were. You've made your choice, and now you need to live with the consequences." It was then that I realized I didn't just want her to feel guilt. I wanted her to truly understand the reality of what she had done. I had been pushed to a point where I needed to reclaim my own power, and it was time for her to feel the full weight of her actions. "Jake, please," she begged, her voice trembling. "I want to fix this. I'll do anything." "That's the thing, Lisa," I replied, my tone shifting to something more resolute. "Fixing this isn't just about you saying you're sorry. It's going to require a lot more than that." I hadn't fully fleshed out what I wanted my resolution to look like yet. Part of me wanted to leave, to walk away from the wreckage she had caused, but another part of me felt compelled to see just how far I could push this. I wanted her to feel the repercussions of her choices, and I was going to make sure she did. "We're going to lay everything out on the table," I continued. "I want you to sit down with Rachel and explain to her why you felt the need to seek affection elsewhere. I want you to admit to your mistakes, not just to me but to the people in your life who care about you. You need to take responsibility." Her expression shifted, the defiance fading into uncertainty. "You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't humiliate me in front of our friends." "Watch me," I said calmly. "This is your chance to acknowledge what you've done and to be honest about it. If you want to salvage anything from this mess, you need to be willing to face the truth and the people who love you." I could see the panic rising in her eyes. "I can't just do that. I don't want them to know. But you want me to just forgive you and move on?" I challenged. "Is that how you think this works? You make a mistake and I'm supposed to pretend it didn't happen?" The tension in the room was thick. My heart raced as I felt the power shift in my favor. I was no longer the victim of her betrayal. I was standing firm, demanding accountability. "Fine," she finally said, her voice small. "I'll do it, but you have to promise to think about what we're throwing away. I don't want to lose you." "Then you better make it count," I replied, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. I was still hurt, still angry, but I also felt empowered. Lisa was going to have to face the reality of her choices, and I was ready to see her navigate the fallout. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I knew that this wasn't going to be easy, but I was prepared for the struggle ahead. I thought about the fallout that would ripple through our lives, her friends, her family, and wondered how she would cope. This was only the beginning. I was tired of being the one who felt powerless. I was steady in my resolve. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions, and I was going to make sure she truly understood what it meant to betray trust. I had made my decision, and I was ready for the next phase of my plan. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. I was riding the storm of emotions that came from confronting Lisa, but there was an odd sense of calmness in the chaos. It was as if I had finally taken control of my narrative, and I was determined to see it through. Lisa agreed to meet with Rachel, and I insisted on being there. I wanted to witness this process to see how she would handle the consequences of her actions. Rachel was supportive, and I knew that if anyone could get through to Lisa, it would be her. But I also knew I needed to be present to ensure that this wasn't just another half-hearted attempt at damage control. We arranged to meet at a small cafe where Lisa and Rachel often hung out. The atmosphere was light and airy, but the tension I felt was heavy as we sat at a table in the corner. I watched Lisa fidget with her hands, her anxiety palpable as she waited for Rachel to arrive. When Rachel walked in, I could see the concern etched on her face. She approached our table with a hesitant smile and sat down, looking at Lisa with a mix of compassion and caution. "Hey, Lisa," Rachel said softly. "I'm glad we could talk." "Hey," Lisa replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I could see the walls Lisa had built around herself beginning to shake. Rachel had always been a good friend, but I had a feeling she would be the one to push Lisa to confront her mistakes head-on. "Jake told me everything." Rachel started, her tone serious. "And I think we need to talk about what's going on. You obviously need to be honest with us. Your choices have impacted not just you, but everyone who cares about you." Lisa's gaze dropped to the table, her fingers twisting nervously. "I know, I messed up. I didn't think it would get this far. I thought it was just a fling." "Just a fling," I interjected, unable to contain the anger that bubbled to the surface again. "That's an understatement. You were having sex with Mike. You were emotionally cheating on me while I was waiting for you to come home. What were you thinking?" Rachel shot me a look and I took a breath, trying to rein in my frustration. "I'm sorry. I need to understand." Lisa looked up then, her eyes red-rimmed. "I thought I could handle my feelings, but I realize now I was wrong. I was feeling neglected, and instead of talking to you, I sought comfort elsewhere. I thought I could keep it casual, that it wouldn't hurt anyone." Rachel leaned forward, her expression earnest. "But it did hurt someone, Lisa. It hurt Jake. It hurt your marriage. You need to take responsibility for that." "I know, I just didn't see it then," Lisa cried, her voice cracking. "I thought I was doing what was best for me. I thought I was making myself happy, but I see how selfish that was now." I watched as tears streamed down Lisa's face. It was hard to see her like this, vulnerable and raw, but I reminded myself she had put herself in this position. She had to face the truth of her actions. "Rachel, can you give us a moment?" I asked, my voice steady. "I think Lisa needs to see this from both sides." Rachel hesitated but nodded. "Okay, I'll be outside if you need me." She stood up and walked away, leaving us in the small bubble of tension. The moment Rachel left, I turned my focus back to Lisa. You think this is going to be easy? You think I'm going to forgive you just because you're upset now? No, I mean I can't blame you for being angry, she said, wiping her tears. I never wanted to hurt you. I just got lost along the way. I thought I could find happiness somewhere else. Happiness, I scoffed. You didn't find happiness, you found a way to escape reality. You ran away instead of facing your problems. Now look where it's gotten us. I know, she exclaimed, her voice rising again. I'm so sorry, I swear I'll do anything to make this right. Anything, I challenged, leaning in closer. What does that mean? What are you willing to give up to fix this? You need to be more specific. I'll end things with Mike. I'll cut him out of my life completely, she promised, her voice trembling with desperation. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I want to save our marriage. I leaned back, crossing my arms. That sounds good, but it's going to take more than promises. You've broken my trust, and trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's going to require work on your part, to really dig deep and understand why you felt the need to betray me in the first place. I get it, she said, her voice softer. Now I need to face my issues. I've been so focused on my own unhappiness that I neglected our relationship. I want to change that. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but doubt still lingered in my mind. I wasn't convinced that one conversation could undo the damage that had been done. But there was a part of me that wanted to believe she could change, that we could find a way back from this. Okay, I finally said, deciding to give her a chance. But you need to understand, if we're going to try to make this work, I need full transparency. No more secrets. If I ever catch you lying again, it's over. Okay, I promise, she replied, her voice steady. I won't let you down again. As we continued to talk, I felt a mix of hope and resignation. Could we truly rebuild our marriage, or was this just a temporary fix? I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. After the conversation, I felt emotionally drained, but I also felt a sense of relief. Lisa had taken a step toward accountability, and I was willing to give it a chance. I knew we had a long road ahead of us, and I was prepared for the struggles that lay ahead. As the night wore on, we came home together, and I could sense a shift in our dynamic. It was uncomfortable, but in a way, it felt like a new beginning, a chance to start fresh, albeit with significant scars. I knew I wasn't out of the woods yet, but the path was becoming clearer. I had reclaimed my power, and I was prepared to navigate the uncertain waters of rebuilding our relationship. At least for now, I had made the decision to confront the betrayal head-on, and I was ready to see where it would lead us. The weeks that followed our confrontation were a mix of hope and uncertainty. Lisa was trying hard to prove her commitment to repairing our marriage. She cut off all contact with Mike, started therapy, and was even more transparent about her whereabouts. I appreciated the efforts, but part of me was still hesitant to fully trust her again. The scars of betrayal were fresh, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never return to the way they once were. We began attending couples counseling together. The therapist, Dr. Mills, was insightful and helped navigate our conversations, but there were still moments when the tension simmered just below the surface. I found myself questioning every little thing Lisa did. Was she really committed to making this work, or was she just putting on a show to keep me from leaving? One evening after therapy, Lisa suggested we go to a local restaurant to celebrate our small victories. It was a nice gesture, and I agreed, wanting to support her efforts. As we sat across from each other at a quaint little table, I tried to focus on the positives. We laughed about old memories, shared stories of our day, and for a brief moment it felt like we were reconnecting. But then, a couple at a nearby table caught my eye. They were engaged in light-hearted banter, and I couldn't help but notice how effortlessly they interacted. It made me think of the ease and chemistry Lisa and I used to share, the kind of connection that seemed to have evaporated overnight. My chest tightened at the thought. "Jake." Lisa's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile. "About what?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "About us," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want to believe things can go back to normal, but sometimes it feels like we're just going through the motions." I get that, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I want normal too, but we have to build a new normal. This is a process and I'm committed to it. As she spoke, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild, but the doubts lingered. I felt a knot forming in my stomach as I thought about the effort it would take to move forward. Can I ask you something? I ventured, of course. Are you really committed to this, to us, or is this just about saving face? Lisa hesitated, her eyes searching mine. I'm really committed, Jake. I know I messed up in a big way, but I want to be better. I want to be someone you can trust again. I wanted to believe her words, but past betrayals echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. It's just going to take time, and I need you to understand that I can't just flip a switch and go back to how we were, I said, my voice firm. I understand, she replied, squeezing my hand. I'm willing to put in the work. I'll show you that I'm serious about changing. That night, I went home feeling somewhat lighter, but the weight of uncertainty still hung in the air. I knew this was going to take time and dedication from both of us. We were standing on shaky ground, and I hoped we could build something strong enough to withstand future tremors. Over the next few weeks, we continued to attend counseling and communicate more openly. Lisa was putting in the effort, and I found myself beginning to soften piece by piece. She was actively working to rebuild her relationship with me, and I started to feel a flicker of hope. But just when I thought we were making progress, a curveball hit. One evening, I returned home from work earlier than usual. As I stepped inside, I noticed the house was unusually quiet. I called out to Lisa, but she didn't respond. A wave of unease washed over me as I made my way to the bedroom. What I saw next sent my heart racing. Lisa was sitting on the edge of the bed, her phone in hand, and the moment I walked in, she quickly put it down. "Hey, Jake," she said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I didn't hear you come in. Who were you texting?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. "Just Rachel," she replied, but I could hear an edge of panic in her tone. The knot in my stomach tightened. "Why were you so quick to hide your phone?" "I wasn't hiding anything, I just didn't want to interrupt you," she stammered. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. Trust was fragile, and I could feel it slipping away from me again. "Lisa, we agreed on transparency. Hiding things is not going to help rebuild trust." I wasn't trying to hide anything, she insisted, but her voice cracked and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Then why does it feel like you are?" I pushed. "You've been doing so well, and now it's like you're backtracking. I'm not trying to accuse you, but I can't ignore my instincts." "I swear it was just a casual conversation," she pleaded. "You have to believe me, I'm trying." "Maybe trying isn't enough," I said, my heart racing. "What if I'm right? What if you're still lying to me?" "Jake, please," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm not that person anymore. I really want to change." "Then prove it," I said, my voice steady but filled with frustration. "If you want to rebuild this, you need to do better than just words. I can't do this if you're still hiding things." The conversation spiraled into a heated argument, and I felt the walls closing in around us. I was tired of the emotional roller coaster, and I needed to know if this was a moment of weakness or if it was a sign of the old Lisa returning. That night, I went to bed feeling defeated. Despite all her efforts, it felt like we were still stuck in a cycle of distrust. The foundation we were trying to build was shaky, and I wondered if we were ever going to find stability again. As I lay there, I realized I was at a crossroads. I had to make a decision about what I wanted moving forward. Did I want to keep fighting for a relationship that felt increasingly uncertain, or was it time to let go and reclaim my peace? I knew I needed to dig deep and find clarity. I couldn't keep going back and forth between hope and despair. I had to decide if it was worth the struggle, or if it was time to take my life in a different direction. With that thought swirling in my mind, I finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the future we once envisioned together. The next day would be a turning point, and I had to be prepared for whatever came next. As morning light broke through the curtains, I awoke with a sense of heaviness in my chest. My mind was racing with thoughts about the previous night's confrontation. The tension between Lisa and me had reached a breaking point, and I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I knew I had to make a choice, whether to continue fighting for our marriage or to cut my losses and move on. I sat up and took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. My phone buzzed with a message from Rachel, checking in on me after the fight. I appreciated her concern, but it was time to face reality. I couldn't rely on outside opinions. I needed to listen to my own heart and mind. After a cup of coffee, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. It was a crisp, sunny day, and as I strolled through the neighborhood, I felt a strange mix of clarity and confusion. I thought about the good times Lisa and I had shared, the laughter, the adventures, and the dreams we once had. But the shadow of her betrayal loomed large, and I struggled to reconcile those memories with the current state of our relationship. When I returned home, I found Lisa sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of anxiety and hope. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment we just stared at each other, the silence palpable. I could see the fear in her eyes, the fear of losing everything she had taken for granted. "Jake," she started, her voice shaking slightly. "I want to talk about last night. I'm so sorry for how I reacted. I didn't mean to hide anything. It was a stupid mistake." "Let's be honest, Lisa," I said, my tone calm but firm. "I can't keep going in circles. We've been through a lot, and I need to know if you truly want to fix this, or if I'm just someone you're trying to keep around while you figure things out." Her face paled, and I could see the panic rising again. "I want to fix this, I really do. I've been working on myself, and I thought we were making progress," she pleaded. "I don't want to lose you." "Then how do we move forward?" I asked, my voice steady. "Trust is not something that can be regained overnight. It requires consistent effort, vulnerability, and honesty. Are you ready for that?" "Yes," she replied quickly. "I'll do whatever it takes. I want our marriage to work. I've made too many mistakes, and I want to prove to you that I can be better." I took a long breath, searching for the right words. "I want to believe you, but it's going to take time. I need to see actions, not just words, Lisa. If we're going to move forward, we need to be on the same page." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I understand. I'll show you. I'll be transparent, and I won't keep anything from you. No more lies." "Good," I replied, feeling a flicker of hope emerge from the depths of my turmoil. "But I need to be honest, too. I'm not sure how long this will take. I can't pretend everything is fine if it's not. You've broken my trust, and it's going to take time for me to heal." "I get it," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm willing to wait. I'll be patient. I don't want you to feel rushed. I just want the chance to prove that I can be the partner you deserve." As we sat on the couch and talked, I felt the tension slowly begin to dissipate. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. We spent the afternoon discussing our feelings, our expectations, and what we both needed from the relationship moving forward. It was uncomfortable but necessary. By the end of the day, we had a plan. We would continue attending counseling and set aside time each week for check-ins, where we could talk openly about our feelings without fear of judgment. Lisa agreed to share updates about her life outside of our marriage, and I promised to work on being more communicative about my concerns. The road ahead would be challenging, and I knew we had a long way to go. But there was a glimmer of hope in my heart. I could see that Lisa was genuinely trying, and I realized that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through our living room, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. We weren't out of the woods yet, but we were taking the first steps toward healing. I reflected on the lessons I had learned throughout this ordeal. Betrayal cuts deep, but it can also serve as a catalyst for growth. I had learned to advocate for myself, to demand honesty, and to set boundaries. I also learned that love isn't always perfect. It can be messy, complicated, and painful. But if both partners are willing to work on themselves and confront their issues, there is a chance to rebuild something beautiful. As I looked over at Lisa, who was smiling faintly, I knew we were both ready to embark on this journey together. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to try, one step at a time. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it, with all its challenges and possibilities.